In the state of Nebraska, amid vast prairies and scattered hills, lived a man named Victor Lawson. He had spent many years working as a traveling veterinarian, helping farmers and breeders treat their animals. Although Victor's schedule was always packed, he sometimes felt a vague longing, as if waiting for something special that would turn his quiet life upside down. One cool autumn evening, on his way back from a local hound breeder, Victor noticed a small, furry bundle by the roadside. Slowing down, he stepped out of his truck and saw a trembling little pup shivering in the cold. No other animals were around. The pup was tiny, with one ear slightly pinned back, and its coat felt coarse, as though it had spent days in the wind. Gently, Victor picked up the frightened creature and wrapped it in a blanket he always carried, shielding it from the chill. From his arm, he heard a feeble, high-pitched whine, less like a dog and more like a strange squeaking. Still, he assumed it was just some mutt with unusual instincts. That was how Rocky came into Victor's home. Initially, Victor tried asking neighbors or calling acquaintances to see if anyone had lost a puppy. Everyone said no. People suggested dropping the dog at the local shelter, but Victor decided he would keep the pup at least until he found a permanent solution. He set the little one up in a warm spot, providing water and some dog food. Yet Rocky turned out to be oddly picky, clearly preferring raw meat. Victor found it peculiar, but he let it slide. Maybe this puppy just had strange tastes. Over the next couple of weeks, Victor observed that Rocky was growing unusually fast. The pup's behavior also raised questions. He rarely acted like a typical dog, hardly playing with rubber balls, instead stalking anything that moved as if he were hunting. On the other hand, Rocky showed trust toward Victor, willingly accepting attention while occasionally letting out a low, almost guttural growl whenever he disliked certain kibble. Curious about this, Victor invited a friend, Dr. Kathleen Rogers, a veterinarian, to take a look. After a thorough examination, Dr. Rogers was slightly shocked. She explained that Rocky might actually be a wolf pup. She pointed out certain proportions of his snout, along with the stiff patches of fur around his neck, traits far more characteristic of a wolf than any domestic breed. She cautioned that if he truly was a wolf, it would be illegal to keep him in a normal home without special permits. Victor was stunned. He loved dogs, but a wolf required an entirely different kind of care. Realizing what Rocky might be, Victor felt torn. Abandoning the pup was out of the question. They had grown attached. But harboring a wild animal in a suburban house threatened local safety and broke the law. Calling the state wildlife department, he learned that owning a wolf demanded a secure enclosure and ongoing inspections. Although it seemed daunting, Victor couldn't imagine handing Rocky over to a shelter or leaving him on his own. Without much hesitation, he sold his old pickup and bought a piece of land outside town. There, he built a small cabin and, most importantly, a spacious fenced enclosure for Rocky. This project wasn't cheap, but Victor believed he owed it to the animal. Soon the wolf pup moved to his new domain, seemingly adapting well. He ran around the enclosure, explored logs and hiding spots, and sometimes howled for extended periods under the moonlight. Neighbors eyed the whole setup with concern, but Victor promised that he had taken safety measures seriously. Months passed and the wolf matured into a magnificent creature, yellow-eyed and thick-furred. Word spread around that Victor's raising a wolf. People were alarmed at first, calling it reckless. But a short TV feature praising Victor's good intentions shifted public opinion. Volunteers started to help expand the pens, some donated dog food. Reporters came to interview him about this man who rescued a wolf. Gradually, Victor's property evolved into a kind of shelter. Locals began bringing him injured coyotes and foxes. Dr. Rogers visited regularly to monitor vaccines and overall care. Thus, the Wild Friends Shelter was born. Although some found it strange to keep a wolf, many admired Victor's devotion. Lawrence Pierce, an inspector from the wildlife department, stopped by for a formal check. Seeing the reinforced fencing and how well Victor managed the animals, he approved a provisional permit. Nonetheless, Pierce stressed that a wolf remains a wild predator, not a dog, and that Victor had to remain vigilant. Victor had already witnessed glimpses of Rocky's hunting instincts and realized the delicate balance required. Over time, Victor's life changed drastically. Each day began with him feeding his wolf and the other rescued creatures and ended with checking that all pens were secure. The local press labeled him the guy with the wolf. Some folks came to see the unusual shelter, offering donations or supplies. Soon there were enclosures for foxes, raccoons, and a variety of other critters. Dr. Rogers offered continuous support while Inspector Pierce, seeing consistent responsibility, grew more relaxed. A year later, Rocky was a fully grown wolf, robust, proud, and endowed with a penetrating gaze. Sometimes, as evenings settled over the prairies, Victor would sit on a bench in front of the large enclosure and call softly to the wolf. Rocky would approach the fence, showing no sign of hostility. Out in the wild, such a predator might terrify anyone with his size, but here, nurtured by care, he shared a quiet bond with Victor. Yet Victor realized that their relationship wasn't owner and pet. Rather, it was a man and the wild creature who trusts him. Occasionally, gazing at the prairies under the setting sun, Victor pondered how close he'd come to missing it all if he'd never stopped for that trembling pup at the roadside. Now he had an entire shelter, complete with volunteers. Neighbors no longer feared the wolf because the fences were high and strong, and Rocky showed no desire to roam into anyone else's yard. Meanwhile, Victor recognized that a mere chance encounter had set him on a new path, adopting some stray pup who turned out to be a wolf. Over the following years, the Wild Friends Shelter obtained proper licenses and additional enclosures. Biology students and local schools occasionally visited. Victor would show them how essential it was to respect nature rather than view it only as a threat. Rocky stood a bit away, calmly watching the visitors. The children never tried to pet the wolf. Victor made it clear that he remained wild. Still, deep down, Victor knew they shared a unique bond that had begun unexpectedly and could never be replaced. In time, the tale of Victor and Rocky became widely known.